Good Saturday morning, everyone. Today on Perspectives, after a violent and stressful season, it makes us hesitant, though, to say it, but yes, we're looking towards again at a brand new hurricane season. The last year was unprecedented since 2005, the season that spawned Hurricane Katrina. Now, it was the second time the Americas faced an incredible and historic number of tropical storms and hurricanes. Last year, of the 30 named storms, officials say that 14 developed into hurricanes, with a record-tying 7 intensifying into major storms. Now, it was also the second season to use the Greek letters to name the systems that threatened the Americans last year. Now, officials say that 11 named storms hit the United States, and this section of the Gulf Coast was not spared, with hurricanes Sally and Zeta making their destructive visits to our area. Well, let's go over some of those facts. Hurricane Sally made weather scientists extremely nervous because it continued to shift and change as it entered the Gulf of Mexico. On September 15th, Sally slammed into Gulf shores as a Category 2 storm. Mobile, Baldwin, and Escambia counties took the brunt of the storm, with wind damage, storm surge, and flooding. Overall now, officials say that Sally claimed 8 lives. Officials say the cost over $6 billion. The other storm that menaced our section of the Gulf Coast was Hurricane Zeta, which became a Category 3 storm. Now, close to the coast of Louisiana back on October 28th, the strong winds impacted a Gulf Coast still recuperating from Hurricane Sally. Weather officials say that Zeta was so strong and enough to bring snow to parts of New England. Now, before it left our area, it claimed 1 life in Clark County, Alabama. Which leads us to this morning as we count down now just days to the start of the 2021 hurricane season. So what are the forecasters saying that we can expect as the tropical storm season approaches? Our guest this morning, our Fox 10 News Chief Meteorologist, Jason Smith. Now, Jason, of course, has watched the Atlantic and the tropics for us for more than 25 hurricane seasons. Also joining us this morning is Zach Hood. Zach is the director of the Baldwin County Emergency Management Agency. And Billy Joe Underwood, Baldwin County Commissioner for District 3. Well, a look back at the 2020 hurricane season and a warning as to what citizens can prepare now for as we head into the 2021 season here in hurricane country on the Gulf Coast. Perspectives continues after this quick break. Our guest this morning, Jason Smith. He is our chief meteorologist here at Fox 10 News. And Jason, we thank you for being a part of this annual program that we do, taking a look at the upcoming hurricane season. I'm going to throw this out to you, and I want your response on how and where we're headed this year after, based on 2020. They said it got off to an early and rapid pace with a record 9 named storms from May through July, and then quickly exhausted the 21 names by September the 18th. What an incredible year for 2020. As you look back on that, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, anytime you get in the Greek alphabet, you've got problems. We saw that the year of Katrina, and we had that last year. And, you know, they just kept coming, and we had our issues here. I mean, we weren't as bad off as, say, Lake Charles, Louisiana. Right. Some of those locations got hit by even stronger storms, but with Sally and then Zeta, a 1-2 punch, you know, it was a long season for us all across the area. And to know that we could even get all the way to Iota, you know, right, 30 storms in, that is an incredible number of storms. Hopefully this year won't be as active. The prediction is not that high, but there are some factors that are saying, hey, it could be a bad year.
And talking about those factors, how did they play into what we had in 2020?
Well, so we're going to more of a neutral pattern. So we have La Nina and we have El Nino. El Nino is good because that gives us strong upper level winds and it keeps the storms from being as likely to form. Going into this year, we don't think it's going to be much of an El Nino type factor. So the environmental conditions are going to be favorable. But the other thing is, you know, water temperatures are above average, and we've seen that in the last couple of years, and that's never a good sign going into a tropical season.
When you look at the severe weather season we've had already this year, does that have any play on what happens hurricane-wise, or are they completely separate?
Not really. It's been an active spring for us, certainly. We kind of had a quiet fall, which was nice.
Yes.
And the fall, is our secondary severe weather season, so that gave us a little break, but it has been more active. Normally, actually, a more active severe weather season would mean we'd have more active upper level winds and those kind of things. That would be a negative for tropical development, but there's really no bearing on what's going on with our local severe weather season versus what's going to happen in the summertime with the potential of tropical systems into the late summer.
So a history-making season last year, and now 2021, Colorado State calling for 17 named storms, 8 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes. How do you look at that?
Well, that's definitely not a good thing when you're thinking above average season. And last year we went into it expecting an above average season, and it ended up being a record-breaking season.
Yeah.
So hopefully we get at least a little closer to normal. And it's really, if you look at it, if we have 30 storms, there's more of the odds that one of those storms can end up hitting us. And so, only takes one. We could even have a below average season and get that direct hit. But the more storms that are out there, the more are that the odds that we're going to get some that actually come our way.
We're talking about, 80 days with at least one named storm, 35 with at least one hurricane, and then 9 days with at least one major hurricane existing in this period. And of course, last year we started in May.
Right, and that's been happening more and more often. Right. We've seen the hurricane season starting a little ahead of schedule. Normally, May and June systems are relatively weak, and even July systems, but once we start getting into the crux of the season, August, September, October, that's when we tend to see the major hurricanes.
And when you look at that, I guess that water temperature in the Gulf really plays a major factor for us here along the Gulf Coast.
It does, and so that's why the season's more active in August and September and in October, because not only is the surface of the Gulf warmer then, or at its warmest point, but it's warm with depth, and so there's a higher oceanic heat content.
When you think about it, sometimes we only think about us here on shore, but how early does the information get out to those guys who are out on the water where they need to be aware that, hey, system is coming your way?
Technology is amazing, and so with satellites, you can get information. Those guys are out there, and if they're in boats, if they're in the shipping interest, they're not going to get caught by surprise unless their technology on their boat is just really antiquated, because there's such a great opportunity to keep track of the weather patterns, and we're doing so much better with tropical forecasting. Sometimes I get hey, y'all didn't really know what Sally was going to do, did you?
Right.
Well, we knew that Sally was in a weak steering environment, and so anytime that happens, the ultimate outcome and exactly how it's going to play out, it's a little hard to predict. But when you get a storm like Zeta, or some of these systems that have a pretty definite steering flow, we get it down to within 30 to 50 miles, and as far as landfall location and the timing on it, within several hours.
That's amazing how you are able to pinpoint things and give us an idea to make proper preparations here. And of course, with us being in this area, that whole aspect of being able to leave and everyone get out who are trying to leave, that's a major factor in the mindset of people down here, because you just can't jump on the road and get out of here, because everyone's trying to go on just a few roads.
It can be that way, and so one of the tricks to having a successful evacuation, especially if you wait till it's too late, is to try and avoid some of the main thoroughfares. Take back roads. It may take you a little longer to get there than it normally would, but if you can work your way out of town on some of the 2-lane highways and that kind of thing, and gain some ground, gain some latitude, either go east, west, whatever direction you're headed, and so you don't get stuck on, for example, Moffett Road trying to get out. That can be a real problem there. Sometimes I-10 can get jammed up if you've got multiple areas trying to go east or west. So there's times where we do contraflow too, especially on the northbound interstates. But one of the biggest tricks is to just take county roads and use your GPS on your car to avoid certain roads, and you can get out easier.
And on that point, Jason, when should a person make a decision about leaving? Because so much now people say, well, it wasn't what you thought it was going to be, but it could have been.
Right. I think the thing to do is if you're thinking about evacuating, you need to do so early and not just wait to the last minute, because that can create more problems and make yourself more vulnerable. But also, there are certain situations where leaving is not always the best thing to do. If you're in an area that's not in a flood zone, in an area that's not in a location that could be inundated by storm surge, and you're in a substantial home that's well built, a multi-story modern construction kind of dwelling, you may be better off staying here than getting out on the roads and risking it, especially if you're north of I-10 and you're in the inland locations. There's a lot of tremendous elevation rise with distance in places like Mobile County and Baldwin County. You are vulnerable at Dauphin Island and in Coden and Bayou La Battery and down around Dog River. But if you can get inland, say West Mobile, for example, unless it's just a monster storm, you may be better off riding it out if it's a Category 2 or a Category 3, and you know it's a system that's going to move fairly quickly.
Take just a quick moment there and tell us that you and Jennifer and Matt and Michael are all set, ready to go for us.
We are set and ready to go. We're already working on our hurricane special, and we're already putting together a game plan for this season. And we always take a team approach to severe weather. We're trying to have as many meteorologists in-house as possible at a time and get that comprehensive coverage going for our viewers.
Well, Jason, we thank you for all you do and your years of service to us as well. You've been hanging in there for quite a while. It adds up, right?
It does. You know, there was a long time, if you're not familiar, Eric and I worked on the morning show together for a long time, had a lot of great years working together, and it's been an honor to serve the community. All
right, Jason, we thank you very much. And of course, our Chief Meteorologist, Jason Smith, joining us today as we get all of us prepared for the upcoming 2021 season. And joining us now on Perspectives this morning, Director of the Baldwin County EMA, Zach Hood, and County Commissioner Billy Joe Underwood. We thank you both for being a part of this program this morning.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Well, I guess looking back at 2020 as we take a step back a moment before we head into the 2021 season, a record-breaking 30 named storms, including one called Sally that Zach, you personally had to deal with, and Commissioner Underwood in Baldwin County. Look back on that storm and tell us how things went, how we fared, and what we're still dealing with today.
Well, Sally really surprised us. I think that as a lifelong resident of Baldwin County, sometimes we get hung up on the category of the storm, and with Sally being like, you know, Category 1, it started out with, you know, tropical storm, tropical depression. I don't think people took it as seriously, and I don't think that we had the reason to take it as seriously, because it's been quite a few years since Hurricane Ivan had hit the coast, and that was a Category 3 when it actually hit, but it had been a Category 5 back down on the islands and areas, and so I think that it just really took us by surprise, and it really lasted a lot longer, and it's amazing to me how that it hit on the same day of the year, so September the 16th, and it was a nighttime storm, so we weren't actually able to visually see it happening.
You're always not fond of those nighttime occurrences. Zach, as you look at what you had to do through the EMA, what was that like for you?
I'll tell you, to sit in the operations center the night and then the morning that Sally made landfall and then proceeded northeast and finally left our area, it was really agonizing to listen and see what was all going on, in a sense of just how many individuals needed assistance because of water, and that just segues right into hurricane season and the theme, and the theme is the water is what is extremely dangerous, and we want anyone that lives around a low-lying area or around area river systems, secondary and tertiary waterways, to know that those areas particularly are of our interest in emergency management, because we know that's where the problems will happen, and those were the heaviest hit areas, from the south end of the county all the way to Seminole, which is in the northeast area. So you know, the message is, do not be complacent. I've heard several individuals talk about how we had a storm last year, so this year reduces our chances, and that's not the case. In fact, again, the weather system is set up again to be very active in the Atlantic Basin, and we have to pay attention to that. As far as Baldwin County Emergency Management goes, we will continue to push and drive messages, and I want to encourage anyone that is watching today to get in touch with their local emergency management agency. Know the EMA, know their phone number, and know the resources that they can offer in sense of what you need to do to be prepared for a hurricane.
And you mentioned the aspect of that water issue. It was a record-breaking water levels in several locations along the Gulf Coast, from Baldwin County over to Escambia County in Florida. What did you all learn from that when you look back now and you're making preparations ahead? What was learned from what Sally did?
Well, we had upwards of 29.9 inches of rain, and I often said, the prediction was 30. Let's go ahead and just get 30 inches down on paper, and and the Weather Service said, hey, look, it's all about the numbers. But listen, that was a lot of rain in a very short amount of time. And it was a very dangerous situation. And I think a lot of individuals just forgot, when a ground becomes so saturated to the point of when the winds finally arrive, it is so easy for trees to topple over. And the trees and the vegetative debris was what caused the majority of our issues. Individuals were not able to get far from their home. And that's why it's so important to have a preparedness kit and be ready and know where to get warnings, know where to get alerts, and have many ways and opportunities to listen to what is going on in the local community, especially once power has been out for a while as well.
It is indeed. Well, Commissioner Underwood, what are you hearing from folks who are still dealing with the results of Sally right now? Because there are still places from the beach area up that are still in disrepair from what Sally did.
Yes, they are. Fortunately, our building code had increased and strengthened since the prior storms in the early 2000s. With we had Ivan in 2004, and then we did get some effects of Katrina in 2005. And when we were able to survey the damage, there's a lot of roof damage and things like that. But structurally, people are just the vegetative damage, which is referred to as the tree damage, was what was the worst, and that was the big brunt of the expense. So a lot of people had trees that are down on their property, that are still down on their property. People are still waiting. Of course, it's a construction boom in Baldwin County with all the people that have moved into Baldwin County. And the last, I have to say, 16 years prior, I think we have about 75,000+ additional residents that live in Baldwin County than they did during Hurricane Ivan. So for the majority of those people, they had no idea what to expect when a hurricane hits. And so I really feel like that people weren't prepared to deal with having to get the trees removed off their property, get them out by the roadways so that the county could get those removed. And fortunately, it was a situation where we would receive public assistance, which we haven't received that much of that yet. It's a long process, but we did finally remove, I think it's like 4.4 million cubic yards of vegetative debris off the roadways, and that's just the county. That doesn't include the 14 municipalities.
And you said million tons, and I mean, that
million
is a lot.
Cubic yards.
Let me ask you quickly, take a moment and share, because Baldwin County is a huge county. We're talking rural and urban, and you yourself farming certain things in the county, and you all personally saw some damages.
We did. My husband is a pecan grower, and that is becoming an extinct occupation over there in Baldwin County and Mobile County, and it really kind of started years ago when I was a little girl. I was just a couple years old when Camille hit, and then we had Frederick in '79, and then we had a couple pretty bad storms in the '90s, but nothing like Ivan. And now Sally has pretty much, we lost over 600 pecan trees, and I knew that night when we were in there, and I was just like praying, oh dear Lord, don't let the roof blow off the house. I know the trees are gone, but Lord, just spare us. And it was a much worse event than we anticipated, even though living there that long. But recovery will be a long time recovery, And but we are resilient people in Baldwin County,
Yes.
and I'm just have faith in the people in Baldwin County.
And of course, still an active farming community, and we definitely pray for all our farmers out there. So, Zach, one storm can be a deadly one and a damaging one, as we learned from Sally. What are you telling people as far as making that decision, whether to leave or to stay, and what kind of situation should they be in if they stay for a storm?
Yeah, my message is go ahead today and have a discussion, whether it be with your family, with your friends, with your neighbor, on what you are going to do in the event that we are in the cone of uncertainty for any given storm in the Gulf. Just like Commissioner Underwood was saying, she was naming Camille and Frederick, and the point with talking about that is it's not if, it's when we will have a hurricane. And if we wait until days before a storm hits, personally, we are all under pressure. We are probably exhausted, tired. We're trying to, live our day-to-day life, and now a storm is on us. What we need to do is know now we need to best plan and prepare and have a course of action for when we're in the cone of uncertainty and a storm is headed this way.
And Commissioner, as well as Director Hood, that is the word that we're going to have to unfortunately end on today, is that preparation, making a quick decision, because these storms can do a lot of damage. We thank you both so much for being here and sharing this morning as we all prepare for what's ahead in this 2021 season. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So be prepared for what could be ahead for us this 2021 season. And of course, join us here next Saturday morning at 9 for Perspectives as we discuss important issues and seek solutions. Now, if you have any ideas of topics you'd like for us to address, just drop it to us here at fox10tv.com. I'm Eric Reynolds. Have a great week ahead.
Thanks for watching Fox 10 News. Watch us live wherever you are, on our mobile, our streaming news app, and you can also watch us on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV.